Welcome to the last interview in the candidate individual one-on-one interviews for the North Kansas City City Council. Wes asked if we could do it in person, and so we are here in this studio, and we're going to do it in person instead of via Zoom. Because are you tired of Zoom?
I'm zoomed out.
You're zoomed out.
And you know me, I've always got to be different, so I got to stand out from the crowd. So that's how I roll.
Well,
thanks for having me, Mindy, and thanks for tuning in. I appreciate everybody taking this opportunity to get to know me better and inform yourself before this very important election. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Well, you've run for city council before.
Yep.
And you made a tough decision to run again.
Yep.
And in your ward, there's 4 candidates.
Yeah. When I signed up, there was one. I don't know if people will realize that, but I was the first to sign up. So
why did you decide to run?
Well, what happened is, why I actually decided to run is kind of a funny story. So let me share. Bryant DeLong was running for mayor, so there was a vacancy, and I was actually running around my ward talking to people. I even reached out to you, and we talked before I ran. And there's a lot. I've been here for a long time. I know a lot of folks, and I was reaching out to neighbors and people that I respect in Ward 1 to try to see who would step up and run to fill the vacancy that Bryant was, running for mayor, so there was an empty spot. So I actually approached other people that I respect, asking them to run, and what kept happening was they said, no, we want you to run. And so I was kind of drafted by my ward to run. So I honestly had no intention to run initially. I was trying to find other people. Frankly, to be brutally honest with you, there's people in my ward that would be a better candidate than myself, but they didn't want to run. They chose me, so here I am.
So, when you first told your wife, who I'm assuming is your person, because that's who you always tell me you go to first, when you first told her that you were going to run again, what did she say?
Every time I make an important decision, I run it by my wife, and people that know me well, you realize that my wife is much. She and I have a very yin and yang relationship. A lot of times, I have a lot of crazy ideas. She just shot one down about 20 minutes ago. So a lot of times I'll bounce stuff off of her, and she'll say, Wes, don't do that, please. And so, going back to my previous statement, I actually asked my wife, why don't you run for city council?
And what did she say?
I'm of the opinion that, my wife, she would actually be really good.
She would.
She is very honest, articulate, well-spoken.
And
people
what did she
respect
say
her.
when you asked her to do that?
She said, hell no. And actually, so I said, listen, sleep on it. Don't, make a rash decision. Like, sleep on it and then tell me in the morning. And she woke up in the morning and said, hell no, you do it. And I said, all right, I'm in. So here I am. And now that I'm in, I'm in it, I'm taking it very seriously. I'm in it to win it. As you can see, I'm dressed as a city council person, taking it very seriously. This is a job interview. Basically, the way I look at this is I am here to present myself for you to vote for me on April 6th, and I would love audience participation. I am very honest and transparent. If you guys have any questions for me, as you all know,
and
as Mindy knows,
I'll open it up for questions
fire away.
later on
Let's go.
in the process, because I do need to. There are some, even though it's conversational format, I'm going to keep it pretty much to
Absolutely.
the same format. So you have lived in North Kansas City a long time.
Yes.
You've been around North Kansas City pretty much your whole entire life. So what was the draw and the reason that you chose to settle and live here and raise your kids here in North Kansas City?
That's a great question. I'll tell you a story that a lot of people don't realize. My wife and I lived in a bungalow over by you. We lived by the little store on 22nd Avenue since 2007, and I still own that house. It's very special to me. That's the house when I got married, had my kids. This place is very special to me. My wife also graduated from North Kansas City High School, so this community to me is more than just a place to live. This is truly, I call it my forever home. And we outgrew our bungalow. We have 2 sons, and man, the last couple years we lived there, it was ridiculous. It was just, our house was too small, but we love it here. Guess, everyone knows I sell real estate for a living. You know how hard it is to buy a 3 or a 4 bedroom house in North Kansas City? I mean, there are very few houses And so
when we first bought a house, we couldn't buy a house here in North Kansas City because you had to chase an ambulance in order to do so. You couldn't find one.
So here's what happened. True story. My wife and I, we saved money. We were, waiting for a house to pop up and to purchase, which is damn near impossible. A lot of you may know, like my wife actually teaches in the Park Hill School District, and I love downtown Parkville. There was a time when we were like, we'd been looking for houses for here in Northtown for over 6 months, and, we were like, should we move to Parkville? They have good schools. We like Parkville. We didn't do it. We had a talk, and I told her, look, I love it here. I don't care how long it takes. We just have to be patient, and if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And I even had an opportunity to buy a house. There's a really good deal up in the Staley School District, and I couldn't sleep that night. We went and looked at this house, and I could have bought it for below market value. It's a good price, good schools. It was in a subdivision, one of those like HOA. I'm not an HOA person. And I woke up the next day, and I couldn't sleep. I was tossing and turning at night. I woke up the next day, and I just told my wife, I can't do that. I can't live up there. I feel we got to stay in Northtown. I don't care how long it takes. We got to be patient. And lo and behold, my wife one morning shook me in bed. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning. She stuck her phone in my face, and it was Zillow. She goes, this house just popped up. So in my underwear, I jumped on my computer, wrote a full price offer, waived inspections, which is insane.
Yes.
I literally told the seller I'm not even going to inspect the house, and wrote a full price offer with no inspections on a house that I'd never stepped foot into, and got the house. So that's how I got my house. So I've been slowly but surely, people that live in my ward know where I live. I've been fixing it up. It's a labor of love. I love old houses, so I'm not complaining. I've done a lot of work to it, but I really enjoy it. It's my forever home. So I'm digging it. Like, I'm super stoked. I joke around with people, and I'm actually serious that when I die, you're going to have to carry my ass out of that house because I love it here. I'm not going anywhere. So that's the story.
So the biggest draw to North Kansas City is?
I just love it here. So I'm more of a city person, city oriented. I'm not a suburb guy. I like old houses. I like the hustle and bustle, like peace and quiet to me. Like, my personality. I'm not like a calm person.
Trains don't bother you.
I love the trains. Like, I like noise. I like hustle, bustle, things going on. I like being able to run around. I like being able to walk down the street and there's people going there and here and there and there's stuff to do. And, last week my car was in the shop. I drive like an old Cadillac, and, I walk to the dentist office. I can walk if I want to get something to eat. I can walk to go get something to eat. You can't do that everywhere. So I love North Kansas City. I'm not going anywhere. So I'm so thankful and blessed that we found our house. And I realize how hard it is to buy a house here, and that's one reason why I'm actually running for council, is because I'm trying to help people like myself that are homeowners trying to achieve the American dream. And there's a lot of people in our community, I just went through this, that are either renting right now and want to buy a house, or like I have friends that live in your ward that have outgrown their house and want to buy a bigger house and can't find it. So that's a huge concern for me, is our housing.
We just counted up tonight, my husband and I at dinner, with all of our kids and all of the grands that we currently have, with one on the way. Every family gathering has a minimum of 23 people.
Whoa.
In my little bungalow. It's not happening. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's some definite
Well, if you
considerations.
need to move, I know a guy.
Okay. Well, now I'm gonna live in my house forever. The last year's been difficult for all of us. We've had to pivot in so many different ways. What did you learn from the pandemic about leadership?
So it's interesting to me. I feel guilt because you said that this year's been difficult, and it wasn't difficult for me. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't. Aside from wearing a mask, I worked this whole time. So did my wife. We're considered essential employees. My wife's a teacher. I'm a realtor. I've still been out in the community working, making money. My kids are still in school. So the important thing about leadership, and what I think that if anyone's been paying attention to me or that knows me, is I'm the type of person that I'm not in this for myself. I'm constantly looking around the community for other people that I can reach out a hand to help in many different ways. So I think that true leadership requires empathy and selflessness. You have to be able to put your own needs aside and come together and look for the greater good of the community and look for people that maybe aren't doing so well. So during the stay-at-home order, for example, I was trying to find people that were, there are elderly people, people with pre-existing conditions that perhaps couldn't get out of the house. I was running errands for people, things of that nature.
So, yeah, you didn't lose a day of work. You continued on with a lot of normal life, but the pandemic and the leadership that we had in North Kansas City, from previous conversations with you, I know that we learned some things about leadership from the pandemic, and as from what we experienced as a community. So, without leading you to an answer, while your life didn't change, a lot of people's lives did,
yes.
and the leadership had an impact on their lives. So, tell me a little bit more about if you didn't learn something from it, what did you observe about the value of leadership at the city level?
Well, at the city level, there were things that I think were done well, and there were things that perhaps weren't done as well. One thing that I had, concern with that you might have experienced was the COVID funds. We got COVID funds, and I think they did a pretty good job dispersing that. But I heard that there were some businesses that weren't even aware initially that there were COVID funds. Is that you know what I'm talking about?
I'm not aware of that.
So, again, that's a topic that's been harped on a million times regarding communication. Mm-hmm. And overall, I mean, as a leader, you have to put the needs of the community, our health, safety, the small businesses, a lot of them maybe aren't reopening. Some of them are just hanging by a thread. As the pandemic winds down, I think that we need to be very aware of the fact that just because things are starting to reopen, we as a community, leaders in our community, need to make sure that our businesses, small businesses, are promoted and supported by the community.
Because it's not just because we're opening back up and doing more doesn't mean that they're thriving yet.
No, not at all. They're in a very fragile state. There's a lot of businesses that the only reason they made it through the pandemic was because of COVID funds. And once those COVID funds stop coming in, we have to make sure that they're able to continue onward. I have a lot of friends that were devastated by COVID, that lost their career, that I have friends right down the street that live on this street that some of them still don't have a job. Some of them had to make complete career changes where they're now in a field that they've never worked in before. Things of that nature. So there were people that were absolutely devastated. So as a leader in the community, you've really got to just be cognizant of what's happening around you and who's in need. And the only way you can really do that is by reaching out to people and letting them know we're here to help, what can we do to help, and really, again, everybody talks about communication and just letting people know that, we're here for you, what do you need, here's what we can do to, assist you. But this year, as COVID wraps up, it's not over. Like, a lot of these businesses are hanging by a thread.
Even now.
Yeah, especially now.
Yeah. Because now it's how do we make people feel safe to come back out and go to these businesses? Do they have the funds? Some of them have been out of jobs for a long, long time. Can they even afford to go spend money in the local businesses? There's a lot of factors that go into.
I don't want to be doom and gloom though, because I see a lot of bright signs. Like there's local places that are starting to announce, hey, we have a band lineup coming back. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of hiring signs. People are hiring. Taze is hiring. There's different venues hiring, so that's a good sign.
It is a good sign.
So
when you think about the history of North Kansas City, now you graduated from North Kansas City High School, right?
Yes. Yeah, I went to Briarcliff, Eastgate, North Kansas City.
All the way
High
through.
School. So yeah, I have a unique perspective on that.
So when you think about the history, I mean, I forget how many years we're old now, 110 or 12,
yeah.
I don't know. But I want to say it'll be 110.
And the high school has
next
a lot
year.
of tradition too. It's one of the older high schools in the area.
I think it's 110
There's a lot
next
of history here.
What is one thing that you want to preserve from the history of North Kansas City as we go into the next century?
So the thing I want to preserve about North Kansas City, that one of my favorite things is just the traditions of North Kansas City, the feel of North Kansas City. And what I mean by traditions are things like specific examples. Snake Saturday obviously is a huge deal here in North Kansas City. It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. There also, like the high school, we have homecoming, the homecoming parade. The high school is a big part of the community. There's also events that maybe aren't as historical, that are newer events that I really like Arts in the Park. I'm really looking forward to that coming back with COVID. Are we going to have Arts in the Park this year?
We are going to have Arts in the
That's
Park.
awesome news.
With lots of music, lots of artists.
I love that. There's things that we can do as a. I hope that as the community grows, we don't lose the sense of community. Put it that way. I hope we keep our traditions.
When you think about the future of North Kansas City, what gets you most excited?
So I have three things. So short term, the thing that makes me the most excited is coronavirus wrapping up, the pandemic wrapping up. I'm ready to sit outside and listen to bands play at night. I'm ready for Arts in the Park to come back, things of that nature. More medium term, I think that we're about to have a lot of improvements to our community with the growth and the development that we have. I think we're going to see a lot of short-term improvements. People have talked about the rabbit hole, but the parks, I think that there's a lot of things that we're talking about right now as the community, such as, like, if you want to name specifics, like basketball courts, trails, an inclusive playground, perhaps a swimming pool, things of that nature. And then if you want to talk like long-term, what I'm excited about, the biggest thing is the streetcar expansion. I don't think that that's something that's going to take place in this term. Like if I win this election, I serve a 2-year term. It's going to take years and years. Like that might be something in the 10 to 20 year time frame. But once that takes place, once we have a streetcar over here going down 9 Highway, I think that's going to completely transform 9 Highway. It's going to be redeveloped. I can see housing, multi-story, mixed-use development along 9 Highway. I don't think that the streetcar, this is just me, but I don't think the streetcar is really going to go all the way to the airport. It's too far. I think we're going to have like a hybrid system where at the end of the line you'll be able to jump on a bus to go to the airport. But to sit here and talk to you and think about, just imagining, daydreaming about, if we could just walk down the street here, jump on a streetcar, go to the city market, go further, go to the World War I Museum, go to Crown Center, go all the way to Waldo and back. That'd be incredible.
What a lot of people don't know about the current streetcars that we have is that they will reach 60 miles an hour.
Okay.
They are totally able to go all the way to KCI should they choose to.
I believe you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was told by a friend that I talk about Boston too much, so let me just real quick.
No, go ahead.
When I lived in Boston, if you want to go to the airport there, you do not take the subway all the way to the airport. You take a subway train, you transfer to another train. Basically, at the end of the line, you jump off the train and you jump on a bus and take a bus to the airport. So just FYI. If you have to go like a really long distance, unless you have like destinations, like stops, it's kind of, once you analyze the cost of laying track that far, I don't think it's going to happen. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see that happening. I think it's going to be a hybrid. It'll be like a bus.
Could be.
So, yeah,
but
we'll see. I'm excited.
But regardless, if it comes across that river, we want it coming through North Kansas City.
It would be incredible.
Not Riverside.
That would be so incredible for what that would do for our community. Like, I'm sure people realize, I mean, I don't have to harp on it, the impact that would have to our local economy would just be absolutely incredible. This would become a destination. Not only that, but there's a lot of development that people look at and they're like, what is the benefit to the residents? If we had a streetcar, that's something I don't think I have to explain to the residents why that would help us. I mean, if I can wake up on Sunday morning with my kids and jump on the car, I spend a lot of time at the city market. If I can take the streetcar to the market, eat breakfast, grab a coffee, go down to the World War I Museum, it would just be absolutely incredible. Because people from Midtown would also, vice versa, they would come up here to spend money. So,
well, when my kids were little, we walked to the library, to Dag Park, to the swimming pool, to the Piggly Wiggly.
Piggly Wiggly.
We were a one-car family, and we didn't miss a beat. We didn't miss doing anything as a one-car family.
Yep.
And the streetcar, being able to go to the city market and explore some of the things downtown, go to the Steamboat Arabia, all that good stuff.
I love that we're a walkable city, but just imagine if we were a walkable city with a streetcar where you could also, bam, you don't even need a car and you can go downtown. That'd be incredible. So, to me, that makes me that's like goosebump stuff. But that's a big picture
It's
way
a
down
big
the
picture.
line. You know, I might be 80 years old by the time that happens. We'll see what happens.
Well, I'm hopefully not that old, because that means I'll be kicking the bucket. The redesign of Armour Road, and you've talked about it a little bit in your videos.
I talk about it a lot.
Um,
That's a number one issue in my ward.
the
Number one thing people talk about.
So, as hot topic as it has been,
Yep.
and there's more projects coming, what can we learn, or what did we learn from the Armour Road project and the communication around it, and what we need to do going forward as we embark on finishing Armour Road and the other projects that are coming?
So I'm trying to. I really want to be positive. So let's talk about the positives that we can get out of the Armour Road project. First of all, I just want to point out that it's a very slim minority of people that hate Armour Road, and what I mean by that is, in talking to people, I've been actually going door to door and I'm talking to people, and I do it respectfully. I wear a mask, I knock, I step back, and I ask people, what are your issues? What do you think about this? And I've found that if you bring up Armour Road, or when people bring up, they say, I hate Armour Road. And I ask them, I like to try to seek understanding, I call it, where I ask people questions. If you say, I hate Armour Road, I say, what do you hate about it? And if you ask enough questions, people will tell you specific things that they hate about Armour Road. There's 2 people right here on Fayette Street that told me, I hate Armour Road. And then once I pinned them down and narrowed it in, they hate this intersection right here at Fayette and Armour. And so what I came to understand is, we can analyze what people hate about Armour Road, fix it, and take those people that hate Armour Road and move them over into the don't hate Armour Road column. And so I think that we need to stay positive about Armour Road. And the other thing I want everyone to understand is the fact that Armour Road we used a lot of grant money to do Armour Road. We were just talking about the streetcar. There's people, very slim minority. I'm talking about, I could count on one hand the people I talk to that want to rip the whole thing, the whole project out. And I'm not sure that they understand what that would entail. We would have to foot the bill. The city, us taxpayers, would have to pay to rip the project out. Plus, we would be ripping out stuff that we were supposed to use. We use grant money for the project. And so if we want to do something big in the future like the streetcar, and we need grant money, they're going to say, nuh-uh, you're the fools that took your grant money project and ripped the damn thing out. We're not giving you grant money. So you have to be really careful how you approach the Armour Road project. Myself, running for council now, after the fact, Armour Road is done. And so what I'm trying to do is seek understanding, communicate with my residents, and find out specific things that I can do to adjust Armour Road. Like the delineators, people are getting rid of that. People hate that. There's certain intersections people hate. There's things that we can tweak that can fix Armour Road, make it better for everyone involved. I think we can all move forward together, synergistically.
And I'm going to bring us back, though.
Fix it. What?
What could have been done to alleviate the dissension about Armour Road from ever happening in the first place, and that lesson, because if we don't identify what that is, the next project's going to have the same dissension.
So what I think was weird about your question is there really wasn't dissension on Armour Road. It was unanimously approved, right?
Not from the community, it wasn't.
From the council, unanimous.
From the council.
And I don't think the community understood, and I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but I don't think the council understood how the scale of the project. I think everyone was kind of surprised once construction started and once everything was said and done. And in talking to people, there are people that absolutely love Armour Road, like everything about it, like don't want to change anything about it. And they're a loud minority of people. I think most people are like myself, where I don't love it, I don't hate it, I'm kind of in the middle. But if you want to go back to the beginning of what was wrong, I don't think anyone really understood the scope and the
So what I'm hearing you
ramifications
say
of the project
is that the council and the planning commission and the city staff need to make sure that people have, and especially the council, have a better understanding of projects before we break ground.
There are huge projects that transpire. That's one of the reasons why I'm running. Is from my house, there's people that live close enough to 23rd and Swift, where these apartments are going in, that had no idea the apartments were going in. I would talk to people about, did you know that they're building a 4-story apartment building here? And they're like, they look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, no, I'm serious. And I could show them YouTube videos of it being discussed. And I'm talking about people where I'm standing in their front yard and you can see I'm like, right there in your yard, there's going to be an apartment building. People have no clue what's going on in our community. Huge projects that are going to have a massive effect on our community.
So how do you solve that?
So, as you know, I make these videos. I talk to people face to face. That's why people said, Wes, we need you to run. Because I was going around trying to find people to run. I'm walking down the street. I'm talking to my neighbors. You guys know what's going on with these apartment buildings? You know what's happening? They're like, no, what are you talking about? And I talk to people and they're like, what in the hell is happening? And one of the questions I get all the time from people is these projects, they go, what benefit does that give the residents? Like, we have huge projects transpiring in our backyard that has a massive effect on our everyday life. And residents are like, it's not like they weren't informed, but we have town halls, and there's also people like myself that you're busy, you're at Cub Scouts, you're in meetings, you're showing houses, you're eating dinner with your family. People don't go to town halls. Like, some people do, but the amount of people involved in town halls, we need multiple modes of communication. People are not as informed as they should be on these projects.
So as to summarize the answer to that question about what could have been done to decrease the dissension about Armour Road and decrease it in future projects is better, more effective communication in the way that people need to receive it.
Not only that, but even the council members themselves, and I'm just speaking from my own perspective. So if I'm on council, if they present to me a gigantic project like this, I'm going to research the heck out of it, ask myself, what benefits does this have to my community? I'm going to make sure that everyone in my ward is aware of what's happening, of what's being proposed, and then get their feedback on, I'm their representative. How do you want me to represent you? How do you feel about this project? Do you like it? Do you not like it?
So not going off of gut reaction, but going off of research and inquiry.
And I don't think that transpired with Armour Road. And I'm trying really hard not to criticize anybody. Like, I'm just saying from my own perspective, that's what I would do.
Well, but I think it's important.
I wasn't on council during Armour Road.
I don't think it's anybody's criticism. I think we bit off more than we knew that we could chew, and then we tried to digest it, and we didn't know how to do that.
Were you informed on Armour Road?
So, like you, I heard we're going to add bike lanes. Fantastic. I'm for bike lanes. My husband was hit by a Silverado truck while riding a bicycle.
So you thought they were just going to like paint a line on the road?
I thought they were adding bike lanes, and I thought, wow, great. And so I didn't go to any of those meetings because I already agreed to add bike lanes.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were doing a redesign. I would have been more curious and asked more questions and done more due diligence if I had known that it was a complete redesign of Armour Road.
Yeah.
So it's how the information was presented. So we have people that are very independent thinking in our community.
I know something about that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
However, that creates conflict. So how do we take that independent thinking and foster it?
Conflict's positive.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good.
And accept that there's a level of conflict, but at the same time,
Easy answer.
engage. Well, let me finish the question.
Okay.
Engage cooperation and collaboration to get things done in the midst of still having some conflict along the way.
Yeah, so one of the things I love about North Kansas City is that we are a diverse community, and I don't mean just like race and religion and economics and things of that nature. We have experts in many different fields that live here in North Kansas City.
Who knew Tony Saper has a degree in all this planning that we're doing?
Well, I love throwing problems out and then letting people throw out ideas and then let the best idea win. And people just need to be respectful of each other. And what I mean by that is you can say that someone's idea is stupid, and that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with that person. It's that simple. I mean, my wife and I just had this conversation 30 minutes ago. There's all the time, I will say stuff. I don't have a filter between my brain and mouth, which is like my superpower, and it's also my weakness, is I'm brutally honest. I don't have a filter. And so there are times when I'll throw out an idea and my wife is like, that is stupid. And I'm like, okay, cool. She still loves me. It's my wife. You can think that someone's idea is stupid, but that doesn't mean that you should attack that person and you're an idiot and I don't want to work with you and I hate you and things of that nature. So I throw out ideas. I've thrown out ideas during this campaign that people were like, that's crazy. I'm like, that's cool. Let it go.
And then you throw out
Here's
changing
another
the
idea.
bike lane into a
Hell yeah.
multi-transportation
I'm all about
lane.
it. Let's do it. I have a dream. Tell me if I'm stupid. It's okay. Like, just don't criticize me as a person. You can say my idea is stupid. I have a dream that one day I will want to go to the Iron District for lunch, and I will hop in my golf cart and cruise to the Iron District.
Right up Iron.
On my golf cart. I had a buddy that lived on Fayette that has one of those cool Segways that's, has the two wheels and you just zip down the road. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud, I think it's a cool idea. I could see people on electric scooters, on Segways, you name it. I can see it happening. They don't go super fast. I thought some of the criticism I got from that is actually, frankly, hilarious. Like, people act like, oh, I'm going to be like running over children on my, golf cart. Somebody the other day acted like I was talking about go-karts, like that they drive like 40 miles per hour. Like, some of the criticism's actually hilarious, but...
Well, don't go too far because my husband will have it be his lawnmower. He starts driving around town.
I've seen videos of stuff like that. I mean, I'm not talking about, playing Mario Kart down Armour Road with golf carts zipping around and craziness, but...
So, what do you think is the biggest and most important role of a city council person? What's the biggest responsibility? Yeah, so the biggest responsibility is exactly what I'm proposing to do, which is to digest what's happening in the community, present it to my constituents, get back from them what they want me to do as their representative, and then present what they want to the council in a, cohesive, presentable fashion, get things done, what my community actually wants to be done. And you have to keep people informed. I don't want to keep repeating myself. It just goes back. It's the same thing. We just talked about this. Just getting the information to the people, gathering their feedback, and then representing the people. Because people don't feel like they're represented. That's my main responsibility. Well, a lot of times people get elected to a position, and we see that in larger cities like Kansas City, Missouri, where they don't really talk to the constituents very often, so they just go in and they use their best judgment.
They do what they think is best. And then the constituents, I knock on doors and talk to people. There's people that tell me, you're running for city council, like, how many city councilmen do I have? I've never met one before. Like, and these are people that lived here for 40 years, stuff like that.
Wow.
People do not feel represented. And frankly, that's why I'm sitting here. If I felt represented, I wouldn't be here. I would just vote for whoever was representing me. So
what's the biggest asset that you bring to the table as you go into this?
Yeah, so my biggest asset is for the last 17 years, every single day of my life, I communicate, negotiate. That's what I do. I'm honest, transparent, communication, negotiation. I sell housing. So that's your superpower that you bring to the table. I'm brutally honest, which is, like I mentioned, my biggest weakness and is my biggest asset to the community. I'm transparent. I will let people know here's exactly what's happening. No filter. I can basically I read the entire master plan for the city and have been breaking it down into 3-minute videos for my constituents because people don't have time to read all this stuff. People are like, oh, the city council agenda is available online. People don't sit there. I mean, by the time you get home from work and you got to feed your kids and have dinner and people don't have time for this. They expect the representative to represent them, and you have to be able to really condense things, take super complicated issues, condense it down into an elevator pitch and say, here's what's happening. So what I propose doing if I'm on council is before every council meeting, I'm going to shoot a video, tell people, here's what's on the docket for this council meeting, here's what's on the agenda. go ahead and leave me feedback. There's multiple ways to reach me. Some people communicate differently. Some people want to talk on the phone, text, call, etc. Tell me what you think about what's happening so I can represent you. And then after the meeting, I want to do a follow-up and say, here's what just transpired, here's the way we voted, here's what just took place. Just keep people informed. The other thing I want to do is, a lot of people do not feel comfortable speaking about certain issues publicly, and there's things that are sensitive issues that you don't want your name attached to. And I think it's very important to provide people a way to communicate anonymously to give me feedback without putting their name on it. And there's a lot of people that support my candidacy that don't support it publicly, and I'm sure you can appreciate that, like, because people don't want to be attacked, or maybe they're friends with somebody that supports someone else, and there's people that like bicycle lanes. I brought up mixed transport, and I'll tell you, if you make bicycle people mad, they gang up, they freak out on you. So there's people that are anti-bicycle lanes or want to change things about bicycle lanes that will tell me, like whisper it to me, but they won't say it publicly.
Well, we saw that a little bit at the city council meeting when the bicycle community came in. I actually saw two ladies leave, and they said to me that they're not going to be heard when there's 50 people from the bicycle community. So we hear that, and so there's some validity to what you're saying about needing an anonymous way for people to communicate and let their feelings be known.
So you're asking what my superpower is. I have this weird character trait that I don't care what people think about me. And I know that sounds weird, but when people criticize me, I can still sleep at night. My wife, for example, is the opposite. She's very sensitive. If somebody says something negative about her, it just crushes her.
Or you.
So, or me. Yeah, it bothers her, but it doesn't bother me. So there's people in our community that recruited me to represent them because they know that, hey man, there's sensitive topics that we need you to represent us on, because we know that you can take the heat, that you're going to get attacked for what that we want to say this, but we don't have the guts to say it. So you say it because you're going to get attacked and you can take it. And that's cool with me. I'm fine with it. So,
what do you think is the biggest challenge that North Kansas City is going to face in the next 5 years?
The growth that we're experiencing. It's not necessarily a challenge as far as like a negative thing perspective per se, but it's going to be a challenge as far as managing the growth responsibly. It's going to affect everything from the traffic to the crime to the city services to the schools to the you name it. So there's going to be a lot of issues popping up here and there, bing, like whack-a-mole, where as these things develop, like 18th and Swift, 23rd and Swift, we're experiencing rapid growth and change, which is great. We're actually going through a renaissance period, in my opinion. We're just right at the beginning of a great renaissance, where North Kansas City is really about to blossom into it's already an awesome community, but the sky's the limit. And managing that growth responsibly and not letting it get out of control. I don't think that growth for the sake of growth is smart. Like, if you're just trying to cram as many people in here as possible, that's not necessarily the smartest thing in the world. That's going to have a negative impact on schools, crime, traffic, parking, etc.
Everything infrastructure. All infrastructure.
Our city services, we're so spoiled here.
We are.
We have 2-day-a-week trash pickup. I tell people in other, I sell real estate all over the metro. I tell people about our services, and they're like, what in the, like, you rake your leaves to the side of the road, and we have a truck that pulls up with a hose that sucks them up, and we have a street Zamboni thing that sweeps the streets, and I can throw 30 bags of trash out twice a week, and they take all my trash, and the first Wednesday of every month
Okay, not
is
30.
heavy trash pickup. You can throw all kinds of stuff out. People are like, what in the world? If you talk about this to somebody who lives in Kansas City, Missouri, they're like,
I have to go buy tags for my extra trash bags.
So if we experience all this rapid growth, are we going to have the same services?
Great question.
Are we?
I don't know.
Is it sustainable? Because right now we're a tiny little community. It's pretty easy to do all these great things when you're a tiny little community. And I love our city services. That's something that's very important to me, is maintaining that quality.
And the way that all communities pay for those things that we need, making sure we have clean water, making sure trash, but is from the property taxes and
Yep.
the sales tax from the business
Yep.
business community. And so this leads us into a question from a
Yeah.
community member, and I'm going to answer half of the question on your behalf. So the half of the question that I'm going to answer for you is someone posed the question of, as a real estate agent, would you consider promoting more single-family homes as a conflict of interest because you're a real estate agent and you would benefit financially? And I'm going to answer that. Every person who buys and sells a home has a choice of real estate agent, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to choose Wes. They could if they wanted to, but we have other real estate agents that live here in North Kansas City, and that is an unfair question.
No, it's not.
No, it is to me.
Oh, okay.
Because that is implying that you have something to gain going on to council, that you're going to gain from. You might get sales.
I would gain. Yeah, I would get sales. All right, right now, no, that's I
You're
appreciate
okay.
the question.
Okay, then answer the
I'm
question.
very honest and transparent. Like,
I
I
know,
want people to ask me tough questions.
But I don't like
Right
that
now,
type of.
I have a spreadsheet with 16 buyers looking to buy property in North Kansas City. 16 people. So,
Okay, so let me give
if
you
they
the other
open
half
up
of
new
the.
housing, yeah, I'm going to make money.
But let me
selling
ask you
housing.
the other half of the question then.
Okay, sure.
Because this is why there's a reason I think it's implying that you have the corner on the market of every home sale that's in North Kansas City, and each person selling a home has a choice of what real estate agent they're going to use, and it may or may not be you.
If you have new construction development, like Northgate Village, they have like an exclusive listing agent where there's a lady, I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but I know her, that sells, all the new townhomes. There's the same listing agent. I don't have any exclusive contracts, is
So
what
this
Mindy's
question
saying.
says, in regards to new projects, you have pushed strongly against new apartment developments in favor of single-family homes. As a real estate agent,
I do take exception to that for one second, real quickly, and we'll get back. I am not anti-apartment. I've been labeled that by people. I am anti-apartment, apartment, 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 apartment. I would like apartment, housing, condo, apartment, housing, condo. I want to mix. I want to mix it up. I feel like right now we're just like, boom, apartment, 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 and it's out of control.
well, and we don't have enough inventory for home ownership for people that move. We rented both. When we moved to North Kansas City, both times we rented.
Another apartment just almost got built where the bowling alley is.
Right.
I mean, they're popping up freaking everywhere, and we're not talking about little.
But part of the reason we
apartments.
wanted to rent here was so that we could be a member of the community until we could find a place to buy.
Bingo.
The first time we bought, we couldn't find a house, so we didn't want to rent while our kids were growing up, so we bought in a different area. And then the second time we moved back, we rented and then ultimately bought the house. So yes, inherently, as a real estate agent, there's the potential that you could benefit from a sale.
Yep.
But it's not a guarantee.
No.
And so,
I'll tell you what makes me sad. There's people I meet that I know. I have friends that I know personally, and I've just met people knocking on doors that live in, like, for example, the duplexes on 27th Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
I know 3 people that live in duplex on 27th Avenue that have a dream of buying a home in North Kansas City, and they tell me I probably will never be able to buy a house here. So they end up moving away. They move to Crestview, or they move to Gladstone, or they're gone, and that's deflating to me. Because if you have people here that love it here and want to be invested long term in the community, and they can't, I'm trying to fight for those people.
And that's where condos could come in, because then we could still build up, because we are landlocked.
Condos are interesting because younger people tend to like condos. There's a lot of people in their 20s that don't want to manage a yard. They don't want to mess with my roof. I don't want to paint the outside. It's basically like an apartment that you own. And then I've also had a lot of empty nesters, they're called, where your kids have grown and it's just yourself, or it's you and your spouse, and it's just a small household. And they're like, I don't really want to mow a yard. I get asked this all the time by people, why don't you have condos in North Kansas City? Because I sell condos around town, like in different areas. Just over the river, there's some really nice condos at the city market. They're not expensive either. They're very affordable.
If you want to live at the plaza, you're buying a condo, because there's really very few houses.
Some of those have really high HOAs, but there are condos that you can purchase in Midtown that are cost about the same as renting an apartment in City View. And so there's people that ask me, like, why do you not have apartments in Northtown? I'm like, that's a great question. I don't know. I don't know. So you know what else bothers me about the whole transparency issue is, like, these developments that pop up, we'll have multiple, the city gets proposals by developers. So the city will pick one proposal, present it to the council. And I've heard...
So city staff presents.
Yes.
Is that city
So
staff?
it makes me wonder. I've
that-
never heard this answered.
Is that city staff and the planning commission, or just city staff?
That's a question for them. If I understand correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I am not a know-it-all by any means. If I understand correctly, and I've watched these meetings, I believe that the city staff selects a plan, and then that plan is put forward. And so it makes me wonder, like, we could have had condominium proposals that no one knows about that just weren't selected. It just makes it. I wonder about these things. So, just a question.
It is a good question. I'm going to pose a question. I'm going to go grab my charger because my phone died and I can't get more questions.
What?
What is the biggest challenge to businesses in North Kansas City right now?
We already talked about it. Pandemic's over, winding down. A lot of these businesses are literally hanging by a thread, and so we as a community need to make a concerted effort to help our businesses. There's a lot of people in our community, myself included, that try to shop local, and I support local barbershop, local dentist office. I go out today I just ate at Hog Jell's Barbecue for lunch. There's a lot of, Donut King, I'm a big fan, Tay's Burger Shack, shout out Post Coffee. I really like their lattes over there. I support local businesses. I'm not a chain person. I've never actually, I'll make a admission here, I do not eat fast food, and I probably haven't stepped foot in a fast food place in over 10 years. Like, I haven't been to the new Starbucks. I probably never will. I go to Post Coffee, things like that. If I want a burger, instead of going to Burger King, I go to Tay's. I try to support small, locally owned businesses because I actually think of myself as a small business. That's what I consider myself, is I'm a small businessman. Wes Graves, real estate agent, is a small business. I'm my own little business. So I try to support other small businesses. So that's the biggest challenge, man. The businesses that are left that made it through the pandemic, I think, are very vulnerable right now. So we're not out of the woods.
How do you fix that?
Supporting them, spending cashish, spending your dollars, promoting them.
As a city council person, how can you address that?
Branding, promoting the city, doing things like, big pick. That's long term, streetcars, stuff like that. You talked about taxes though. Getting back to that, that is the negative thing that we need to focus on too with the streetcars. I'm interested. There's a committee, being formed where they're really going to look deeper into that on how that's going to affect us and how much it's going to cost, and are they going to raise taxes? Is there going to be like a transportation tax on a certain district that would impact things of that nature? So
do you think that North Kansas City is branded well enough that
no.
that businesses in if you say my business is located in North Kansas City, do people know where that is?
No, absolutely not. As a real estate agent, I have to explain that to people all the time. I tell people I live in Northtown, North Kansas City, and I have to tell them, like, I live next to North Kansas City High School, because unless you live in the Northland and you're a lifelong Northlander, if you're from Lee Summit or, Texas or whatever, North Kansas City, people think like you live by the airport or, just somewhere in the Northland. So no, if you're asking me, like, are we branded well enough? No. I don't think people really know where the limits, everyone knows that. It's common sense.
So you know where Northtown is and you know where Chicken and Pickle is.
And that's the other landmark. You tell people, I live by Chicken and Pickle. I live by Mackin Park. I live by North Kansas City High School. There's certain landmarks that people understand, but people don't understand that we're our own municipality. I just got asked about this today. I tell people I'm running for city council for North Kansas City, and people are like, I'll vote for you. And it's like, dude, you live in Briarcliff, or you live, in Stately High School District. Like, you don't live in North Kansas City. So what can we do? Like, what do you have a proposal, Mindy, for branding?
I always have a lot of proposals for branding, but that's an hour-long conversation.
Okay.
We don't have time for it today, but I'd love to have that
I
conversation
enjoy hearing
with you.
from people, yeah.
It's a conversation that we should have because there are
Very
ways that
important.
don't cost a lot of money
No.
but are very effective
Bingo.
in the short term while we're doing the long term. So I'm just going to go back to the Facebook feed and just make sure that we don't have any other questions.
Well, if you're just,
I
got some ideas.
Give me 1 second. Is there any way to take some industrial property and convert it to mixed use with
Yes.
some residential and condo?
Yes.
How do you do that?
Zoning, planning and zoning. You have to, so that's what I think the next phase is. So right now, this ward I live in, these apartments don't affect people in other wards like they do my ward. And it's a very hot topic where I live, the apartments going in. It's gonna, cause there's already issues with parking and speeding in certain places. Some streets don't have issues, some do. It's a very sensitive topic. I think that we need to stop expanding apartment buildings in certain areas that are already developed, and I think we need to start eyeballing other areas and redeveloping those areas. And I think that once we connect better to other parts of town, the most glaring, obvious one is City Market is a hot area. Why don't we develop that area just on our side of 9 Highway Bridge and start from there? So mixed usage, I would love, even there's one spot right here that's like common sense, the vacant lot at Armour and Swift, where the fire happened. There's a vacant lot right there. Why don't we have some type of mixed use building there, where you have retail space on the main level and people living above it?
As long as it keeps the architecture of that corner sound.
So, I'm sorry to my friend, shout out, that says I talk about Boston too much, but when I lived in Boston, again, I lived in 3 different apartments when I lived there, and every apartment I lived in, the first floor would have, you'd have a pizza place, a real estate
Well,
office.
that's what was going to happen at 23rd and
Oh,
Swift.
good. Oh, yeah, they do the old bait and switch. That's what the developers do, and that drives me freaking crazy, is people keep falling for the bait and switch, where they give you, look at this awesome development that we're going to have, and then people get all excited about it, and then once it actually transpires, all the cool stuff is stripped out of it.
Because let's be very candid, for business owners, entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
I've helped over 300 entrepreneurs start their businesses. I always suggest North Kansas City as a location. We've got so many things from Link City to the ease of doing business with the city that are an asset, but we don't have near enough spaces for entrepreneurs to start their businesses.
Okay.
And so that was kind of exciting to have there at 23rd and Swift, and so if it was at Armour and Swift. My concern with that is if you're going to do that, then we have a historic downtown that we don't want to change the feel of that downtown.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's scary. When you're going like this, people have concerns. They're scared to lose what we have. They're scared to lose our identity.
We want we want the growth.
Growth is good, but you have to be very careful how it's done.
We want to be smart about how we do it.
And we have to have input from our community members to make sure that everyone's comfortable moving forward. Because if you just do all this stuff and then people feel like they didn't have input, then they don't feel like they're being heard. They don't feel like they're part of the community at that point.
Agreed.
And that's very important to me. That's one of my main concerns. I have a bunch of ideas too, like some cool stuff I want to throw out.
So here's we are at literally 8:59. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let us go over just a couple minutes. I'm going to ask you one last question, and then I'm going to give you some time to kind of go through some of your ideas.
I want one idea to throw out that I haven't thrown out before. You and I have talked about it privately.
That's okay. Let me ask the last question first.
Yeah.
And then you can let you kind of do a monologue of your ideas and what you want people to know. Out of everything that we've talked about tonight, you can't use any of those as the answer. What are 3 of your favorite things about North Kansas City you have not mentioned before?
That I haven't mentioned before?
Yep. I'm pushing it.
That is brutal. So I can't talk about the high school. Like, I love the high school is very important to me. I went to school there. Love it. I love listening to the band play. I love walking across the street and going to football games.
Do you like the design of the new addition?
No.
Thank you.
And it's in my front yard. It looks like a freaking
I know.
giant.
That's why I asked.
It is a giant beige cube.
Yeah.
It's like,
They could have looked at the architecture of that just a little
I
bit
love
better.
the old school, like the traditional brick building, so I'm so glad they kept it. And I was told that like it was a big deal keeping it because they're like it's much more cost effective just to tear the whole old school down and just build a brand new school. And they were adamant that they keep the old school.
We
which
keep
costs
wanting a brick facade to go up on the new build.
retrofit it.
Something.
It's in my front yard. It looks like crap. So you
So-
guys see it every day. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of
Okay,
that.
so that's one.
Two, god dang. I already mentioned, like, you said I can't mention the same thing. So I was
I
going to
did.
say, like, Arts in the Park. I can't mention that.
No.
So I've already mentioned everything. This is like cheating.
No, there's more.
I've already talked about all the stuff that I love about the community. So, okay, here's some. One thing that I want to keep about North Kansas City is the tree-lined streets. And I also love the fact, I'm into houses, obviously. I like the fact that all of our houses are unique. And you know what makes me sick? And this scares me about development. Here's one of my fears. We have old houses here. One thing that scares me is there are certain areas, I guess I won't mention them, that people are scared that their houses are going to be bulldozed for a new development, like what happened with Northgate Village. And it scares me. There are parts of the metro that you can go in a subdivision and everything looks the same. And you can go in your backyard and sit on your deck and you look around and you see everyone's deck, all the houses are the same floor plan, they have no soul. There's like 3 paint colors, everything. That scares me.
I lived in one.
I'm so scared that someday they're going to bulldoze our old houses and are going to make this into a soulless, beige
So the high school,
community like the high school, like they did with the new high school development. That was lame.
the tree-lined streets.
The tree-lined streets, our
And
city services. I love the cats. I'm a cat person. I've heard other candidates say they're a dog person. The people I'm running against. I think that sets me apart. I'm a cat person. I am. I love cats. I know that's controversial. People,
No, I love cats as long as they don't come to my yard.
I have a cat Moose that's very controversial in my ward. I'm not gonna lie. He murders birds. He's very athletic. He climbs trees.
Does he take care of the excess squirrels?
I've never seen him and the squirrels kind of have a truce. Like, have you ever seen a cat catch a squirrel?
No.
I mean, squirrels are not gonna lie. They're pretty badass. Like, squirrels are like commandos. I don't think my cat used to chase him for a while, but I've never seen him actually catch a squirrel. I think he's gotten to the point where he just kind of looks.
No,
at
I just saw him chase them off, but they're even getting lazy by doing that.
He can climb trees, and even in the trees, like, he doesn't mess with squirrels. But we have other neighborhood cats that he's formed a gang, and Moose is very good at climbing trees, and so he is like the tree climber in the gang. Some of the cats are either declawed or they just can't climb, and so he's like the designated climber in the cat gang over
Okay.
here.
So, I'm going to give you a few minutes to talk about what's on your list that we haven't already talked about.
I like throwing proposals out there.
Do it.
And you guys can attack me, it's cool.
Do it.
Like, just don't make personal attacks. Like, I had a guy the other day tell me that he wanted to see me run over by a car because I was riding my bicycle with no helmet, which is crazy. Stuff like that. If I do something stupid, just tell me it's a stupid idea.
Okay,
Don't
so
tell
I'm
me
gonna go here just because my husband was hit by a Silverado truck while on his bicycle, and the helmet is the only thing that saved his life.
Here's important to me. You were talking about the local economy,
So we're
local
your
businesses. Here's something very important to me is in North Kansas City, we need an NKC first hiring policy. Here's what I mean by that. We have lots of important job openings here in North Kansas City. Even right now, the city administrator is retiring. We got job openings out the wazoo. I saw a police officer the other day, and I was talking to him, and I asked him, I already knew the answer, but I was like, how many of you guys live here in Northtown? 0. He said, we have 1 dispatcher that lives here in Northtown. I think that's a travesty. We have very good, qualified, intelligent, awesome people here in Northtown that want to work for the city of North Kansas City. So what I would propose is, when we have a job opening, whether it be at the water department or the city administrator or the police officer, what have you, if it's paid for with public funds, if you open the job opening to applicants, if you're a resident, your application should go up to the top. That's for a variety of reasons. Obviously, it helps the local economy, gets our local people employed, but most of all, most importantly, if you work for the city and you live in the city, you have a vested interest in your job, in doing a good job. So there's one guy in my ward that works at the water department I met. He's an awesome guy. I know a guy in my ward that wants a job at the Public Works Department. People are concerned with, diversity and things like, we want the police department to reflect the citizenry. How much more direct can you get if you had actual police officers that lived in North Kansas City on the police department? I realize that I'm not stupid. I realize that we're a small community and there are jobs that might open up and there's not a qualified candidate in our community or no one applies in our community. Then you just hire the best person from outside the city. But if you have a variety of candidates and there's one that is a local resident, I think that we should have a preferential hiring system for our residents. And then if you want to go a little further even, if there's stuff like, if the city needs to print something as a basic example, I think that they should look at local printers for
Raven or
yes,
Preference.
yes, yep. You're talking about how to help local businesses. I mean, that's like a direct injection into our local economy by using our tax dollars here in our community.
What message does it say to our businesses here when we do business with businesses outside of North Kansas City without even having had the opportunity to bid?
Well, I think they do give them the opportunity to bid, but I don't know if they really
Always
prefer them to get the bid as long as it's competitive. I mean, obviously, if you have a bid for, I'm just going to make something up, resurfacing a baseball field, and there's a local company that's in the city that'll do it for $10,000, and there's a outside bid for $5,000 that's half. If it's like a huge, tremendous difference, as long as they're competitive, I think that you should give the
be
advantage.
fiscally responsible, but
So there's two ways.
at least make sure that the North Kansas City business is at the table.
And I'm just brainstorming, which I think is positive. One other idea, another way you can implement this is if you have a job opening, you could open it have it like an open initial period where you can only apply if you're a resident, and maybe you do like. Obviously, if it's a job that needs filled instantly, then you can't do that. Like if it's a really important job at the water plant where like you need somebody to operate a machine and we need them now. But if it's a job that you can wait on, open it up. Say local residents can apply for the first 10 days, and then if no one applies, it's
Open up.
Then open it up to the rest of the city. There's other places that actually do that. I have a client I work for right now that works for the city of Kansas City. He can only buy a house in Kansas City, Missouri.
Anything else on your list that we haven't talked about or touched on?
I've shot video. Like you guys can go to my Facebook page. I've talked for I shoot videos. Other people talk about my videos. Like a lot of these topics that candidates are talking about, the reason they're talking about it is because I'm raising awareness. I'm putting videos out. That's what I'm good at. I want to create an environment in North Kansas City where people feel open to express themselves and to share their views, and we can use the diversity of ideas in our community to come together to work synergistically and be proactive to work toward our common goal of making North Kansas City the best place possible. That's how I feel. So I hate seeing people attack each other and tear each other apart, and I can have differences with people and still work with them. If I disagree with your idea, that doesn't make you a bad person. You still love North Kansas City just like I do, and I just want people to know that I will always use my ears and listen to your needs and concerns and seek to understand where you're coming from and use empathy. And that's what I do for a living, is I negotiate, I listen to people. What are your concerns? What are your concerns? Come to a consensus.
So a question that was posed, and this will be the last question of the night.
Okay.
And it's a delicate question, but I think it's important that we have an answer to it, and I think you deserve the opportunity to answer
Okay.
it. You have, in weeks past, talked about some things that you thought were not above board in our town. And the question is how do you plan to work effectively with those individuals that you have talked about that the corruption word came into the question?
Yeah, so to define what I think a lot of people, if you throw around the word corruption, I think a lot of people think that means money is involved, which if you actually look up the definition of corruption, and I didn't even want to talk about this because frankly I think it makes the city look bad. So I don't even like talking about this, but I will since the question was asked.
The question was posed.
Yeah. No, there are people that for a fact are corrupt. And what I mean corrupt is I don't think that they're taking bribes or there's like money involved. I think that there are people that are dishonest and perhaps say things that aren't true, perhaps about myself, or perhaps about their dealings in the city, or their involvement with things that are on city council that may or may not directly affect them.
So how do you propose, if you win,
Yeah.
how do you propose to be able to work with those very same people?
Man, I work with people every day that I don't like. Believe me, I'm a real estate agent. There's people in the world that I don't like, and I work with them. And so I think that's actually a positive thing. Is that's one reason why I think people are voting for me, is they know that I am honest and transparent. So if there are things that are going on in our city council that are not above board, I will talk about them and I will expose it and bring it to light, and I'm not afraid to do that. And frankly, that's where a lot of the negativity and attacks come from toward me by others, is I think people realize that I am honest and transparent, and that I like to shine lights in dark places, and I think that makes certain people uncomfortable. And I do not want to make our city look bad. I love North Kansas City very much, and yeah, there are things that have transpired in our city that I'm aware of.
In every city.
In every city, but there are things that take place in North Kansas City that I'm aware of, that I am not comfortable with, that I think are dishonest practices, and I'm not cool with it, frankly. And if I'm aware of things happening while I'm there on the council, I will expose it and I will talk about it openly with the community. As far as like working with people, I have no problem working with anybody, as long as it's constructive. Like I said, I have a real problem with people attacking me personally, especially if it's dishonest. If you attack me over something that I've said or done that's honest, I'm not perfect, I make mistakes every day. If you criticize me over something I've done, I can own it, I'll own it. But if you attack me over a lie, and I didn't want to go here, but during both elections I've been a part of, I have been massively lied about. So it's not something I want to even really talk about, but I have I've said the word honesty so many times in this conversation, and that is one thing I have zero tolerance for. If you're a dishonest person, then...
So what quality that you possess allows you to be able to still work with people that you have those types of disagreements with?
So, I don't know if you guys are... It's kind of a weird question, because on city council, you have 8 people, and you don't necessarily have to agree with each other. You realize that. Like, I think conflict is actually a good thing. So if there's somebody that I have a disagreement with, I will, like I said, respectfully disagree with them. I'm not going to sit up there and
You're not going to
call
vote
people names or
You're not going to vote against them just because they're the ones that...
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I have the city's best interest in mind. That's actually why I don't talk about this question publicly, because I think it makes our city look bad, frankly. If people are looking to invest in our city or move to our city, and they have city councilmen running around talking about corruption, is that a positive thing for our city? No.
Nope.
So that's why I shut up about it. But that's a great question. I mean, it is a sensitive topic.
It is, and clearing the air is a good thing. So if there's one thing that you, besides the fact that you don't have a filter and that you just kind of call it like you see it.
Yeah.
If there's one thing that you want to leave this evening with people knowing about you, what would it be?
My heart's in the right place. I love this city very much, and I just want you to know that even if you disagree with me, with my ideas, that I respect you, and I'm listening to you. And throughout this entire campaign, I've gone around and knocked on doors. I literally have a notebook in my hand where I take notes on... I knock on your door and I say, I'm running for city council. I would like to represent you. I want to know what your concerns are so I can represent you. Because I literally want to represent the community. And there will come times when, as your representative, I might go against my own beliefs. If it's something that I feel is right that my ward wants. There are topics that I have concern with that I went through and talked to people about what their concerns are. A lot of my concerns are not on this list. A lot of the things that are important to me are not important to my ward. You know, in my ward, the most important thing is Armor Road, traffic, people talking about speed bumps, crime. That's stuff that's not on my radar. But it's important to me because it's important to my ward.
It is. It's really disconcerting when...
Because that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not doing this for myself. I love North Kansas City. I love my ward. I'm staying here the rest of my life. I have little kids. The future of this community means everything to me. And so the reason I'm here is not for my real estate career or I don't have nefarious purposes to make people look bad or expose corruption in the city or anything. I'm literally out here busting my butt, knocking on doors. I have blisters on my feet, talking to my ward, trying to find out what's important to people so I can represent them, so that we can grow together as a community and make this the best place possible.
And just because we're neighbors doesn't mean that we're always going to agree, and it doesn't mean that we're always, we're always going to even like each other, but we are still neighbors at the end of the day. Every day.
Yeah.
We're a small enough community. So April 6th is the election day for the general municipal election in Missouri and in North Kansas City. Your polling place is North Kansas City's YMCA, formerly the Community Center. And if you are registered to vote, we ask that you come out and vote on April 6th. We have the city council election as well as the mayoral election. And as we learned from the pandemic, your local election and elected officials have more of an impact on your day-to-day life in a situation like the pandemic. And making sure that we have the right people in the right place to represent our city is integral to our livelihood and our success as a community. So please vote on April 6th, and with that we bid you good night and we'll see you next week.